Yes, it's time to tackle the headline, and we have a trade wrap coming up today. Of course, the silly season not far away. Macca, we're going to start with you because there's been a bit of chat about the future of Jaden Stephenson and potentially whether the former Magpie and current Kangaroo could pull the pin. You've been able to get to the bottom of this one for us.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk around the industry today that he might have retired and stepped away from the game, but I can tell you that's not the case. He's got one more year on that deal from North Melbourne. That was a 5-year deal. That's he's on around about $550,000. So
nice work if you can get it.
Nice work if you can get it. So as I say, there's been some industry talk today. It's been shot down to me. I've spoken to a few people around the situation. It's not happening. I can tell you he's had his exit interview with Alistair Clarkson.
How'd that go?
Interesting. Interesting. There's a lot of work he's got to work on in improvements in terms of, getting himself to the conditional level that he needs to get.
Get the guitar out at all? Or?
No, but I can tell you North have done all of they've whipped through them and done all of their exit interviews so far, which I think is really good. No indication that he's going to step away at this stage. Certainly not from that exit interview there.
Well, if he's entitled to $500,000,
why would you not stay around? So, but it was funny. It went round like wildfire.
And I just don't know where he plays. I don't know that they know.
Well, I think we're back here. I think you make a good point. I don't know whether they know. We've spoken here about him going to a halfback flank, which he did for a period. Didn't quite work.
He's kicked 23 goals in 21 games. He seduces you. Well, and yet I would say if he is on that list, they'll keep playing him, and he's not going to get him anywhere one skerrick towards winning games of football.
No.
So I would say that you should offer up, let's call it 450, and then go and play in the country. I'd move him on. The greatest waste of money right now in the AFL, when you think of Tom Hawkins playing for $350,000 and Joel Selwood, is Callum Coleman-Jones and Stevenson on $1 million. Now, I'd hate to think what Zach Fisher and Griffin Logue and Dylan Stephen and a few of those guys are on. Now, I'm not blaming North Melbourne because that's what you have to do to get these players in, but George Wardlaw contracted for 2 more years, and of course, Harry Sheasel did that mega extension. I think the message to North Melbourne will get a bit better first before you do that long-term extension for Wardlaw. So they've got issues.
Can I say that I think it's another, I don't mean to be harsh, it's another dud deal for the Kangaroos and their fan base. They paid too much for Jared Pollock and didn't get a lot in return.
100%.
Stevenson, when he left Collingwood, and everyone at Collingwood went bananas about it, or certainly from a fan perspective, they were confident he was not going to hurt them in that departure, and they were right.
Would you have said, though, it's an okay deal? Because it's all right to do it in hindsight, and I know you would have spoken to people at Collingwood, but I think most of us thought, well, hang on, it's not bad. They're desperate. He kicks goals. He kicked nearly 40 in that first Rising Star year.
He did,
So I think some of those deals are more culpable than Jaden Stephenson.
And would it have been different if he had been at another club with better development in that sense as well? Would it have been different? I don't know. Collingwood couldn't sort him out in the sense of getting him to play back to that 2018 form. So I'm not sure how. And just on the Kangaroos, Will Phillips, there's been a lot of talk about what's happening with Will Phillips as well. I can tell you he's got a 1-year offer from the Kangaroos. He's likely to accept that. He's pretty loyal, this guy. He really wants to stay around. So hopefully he does get his chance next year to really take it further.
Interesting. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of rival interest to what Will Phillips said. That's why North Melbourne only offering the 1-year deal. Right, next up, Josh Schache. So delisted Demon today was at 3 clubs, the Brisbane, of course, and the Western Bulldogs, and then Melbourne, searching for his 4th club, Josh Schache. So he wants to continue to play at the top level. It's going to be difficult for him. Or maybe he's a SSP sort of prospect, whether he can train at a club and put up his hand, try and impress through the season and through over summer, be picked up in January, February. I don't know. It looks difficult. I think that the night he was named as the sub for the Melbourne final and Simon Goodwin chose not to bring him on the ground for a single match of that losing final, I feel like that would have been a devastating blow for him.
Absolutely, and that's not his fault. That was a selection issue that they got completely wrong.
So they bring in Tom Fullerton, who, let's face it, he's not a ruckman. They bring in Schache, who is not a ruckman. They're looking for an intercepting defender, or Dan Houston, a rebounding defender. They're looking for another midfielder if they lose Petracca. They're looking for. They've got some holes. They've got some holes
They're
right
looking
now.
for a lot.
Hey, what about Jack Lukosius, Ralphie? There's a bit of talk that he could be headed to Victoria. Did you able to check this one out?
Well, of course, with the Dan Rioli trade, would you say, OK, would you throw him in, or would he be a central part of that? Richmond is a no. I don't think they believe that he's a robust enough footballer. Collingwood, he's been mentioned in dispatches. The best thing for Gold Coast, all of a sudden there's multiple clubs. Port Adelaide has met him, so has Adelaide. I think the feeling at Gold Coast is Adelaide needs a win. And so, potentially they might get they would say we want a first rounder for Jack Lukosius, but I think that's a 45 days until the end of the trade period amber claim. They'll get something for him, and that might help them to get Dan Rioli, or, of course, maybe John Noble, David's son.
So for the Crows can get Alex Neil-Bullen and Jack Lukosius. That would be a busy trade period for the Adelaide Crows. What about Nathan Kruger at Collingwood? What does his future hold?
So still uncontracted. Look, when they're talking about we need a forward, he came in for a 4 or 5 week patch. He kicked multiple goals. And the best thing about him is he's a forward ruckman. There's heaps of ruckmen who think they can go forward and they're deluded. They can't. Whereas he actually is that bloke who could give you a 7-minute chop out somewhere else.
And he's very combative too, Ralphie. I like that about him. He has a crack. You worry about his body, but
shocking run with injuries.
No, all those things, shoulder reconstructions. But there's a few clubs out there that, you know, whether it's an Adelaide or whether it's an Essendon, you know, if they're looking for a next Todd Goldstein, you know, that type who's potentially going to get a multi-year offer. He wouldn't want a squillion, but he'd just like to be on an AFL list. And so they might offer him a deal, but I think he's as we know, ruckman, they never go out of style.
What about the former Tiger, Ivan Soldo, the big man at Port Adelaide? That might not last beyond this year.
Yeah, so Richmond held really strong on him, and I think that's what they should do in terms of their philosophy with, you know, the players who will leave. You only do it at a minute to midnight. So I think they got pick 41, a future second rounder, which is Freo's pick. It's now 29, and a future fourth. So, you know, 29, 41, future fourth. They're pretty good picks for a bloke who's not playing AFL footy. Jordan Sweet's gone past him. Dante Vicentini looks okay, even though they played him as a forward on the week with Charlie Dixon out. So interest there. Again, ruckman never go out of style. There's clubs who would like a backup ruckman. But if you were Port Adelaide, you'd say, we moved heaven and earth to get you, and all of a sudden you want to move back to Victoria. I think that they would be entitled to hold firm.
Well, hopefully he's focused on potentially winning a premiership with the Port Adelaide Football Club. So potentially a fairy tale still to be written there. Right, thanks for joining us on Tackle the Headline. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.